Chapter 1. You become your surroundings. Most people think they became who they are all by themselves, that their character, the things they want, the way they see the world, all came from somewhere deep inside them. And it feels that way from the inside, so it is an easy thing to believe. But it is not really true, and once you see why it is not true, it is very hard to unsee. The truth is this: you are shaped far more than you would ever guess by whatever is around you, not now and then, all the time, quietly in the background, every single day. There is an old saying that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It is the kind of line people put on a wall and then forget about. But stop and actually think about what it is saying. If it is true, then the people you spend your days around are not just company. They are slowly turning you into a version of them. And that means one of the most important choices you will ever make is a choice you probably do not even think of as a choice at all. Who you spend your time with, what you let into your life, what you stand near day after day. Here is a way to picture it. You do not become as big as your dreams, you become as big as your surroundings. You can have huge dreams in private, in your own head, late at night, but if everything around you is small, those dreams do not stand a chance. Because slowly, without noticing, you start to match what is around you. What the people near you think is normal becomes what you think is normal. What they would never dare to do, you slowly stop daring to do too. Their limits quietly become your limits. Let me show you what this looks like in a real life. Picture 2 men. They start out exactly the same trade, same skill, same quiet dream of one day running their own business. On paper, you could not tell them apart. The first man spends his evenings with people who have never built anything. Good people, but people who talk about work as something that is done to them. People who moan about their boss, moan about money, and treat anyone who wants more as if they are being greedy or getting above themselves. So every time our man mentions his dream, he feels a little bit silly. And slowly, he stops mentioning it. Then slowly, he stops even thinking about it. 5 years later, the dream is gone, and he could not even tell you when it died. The second man falls in, almost by accident, with a few people who run their own small firms. Nothing fancy, just ordinary people who happen to have started something. And around them, wanting to build a business is not strange, it is normal. When he talks about his dream, nobody laughs. They ask him how it is going, they swap tips with him. They just assume, of course, that a man can build something because they all did. 5 years later, his little business is up and running. Now here is the important part. Neither man was smarter than the other. Neither one worked harder deep down than the other. Nothing was decided in one big, dramatic moment. The only real difference was the people they stood next to, night after night after night. One group quietly killed the dream. The other quietly grew it. That is how powerful your surroundings are. Now this can feel like an uncomfortable idea at first. We like to believe we are self-made. We like to think we are fully in charge of who we are. And here I am telling you that a huge part of you was shaped by things you never even chose. But stay with me, because this is actually the most hopeful idea in the whole book. Think about it for a second. If you are shaped by your surroundings and you can change your surroundings, then you are nowhere near as stuck as you feel. You are not doomed to stay the person your current life has made you. You are not finished. You can change what is around you and let it slowly reshape you into someone new. That is what this book is really about. It is not about blaming anyone. It is not about turning your back on the people you love. It is about understanding a force that is working on you every single day, whether you notice it or not, and then learning to use it on purpose instead of being used by it. And the first step is simply to see it. Most people go their whole lives and never see it. They think their limits are just who they are. They carry the ceiling of their surroundings around like it is their own personal size, and they defend it. And they never once suspect that it was never really theirs to begin with. But you are going to learn to see it. And once you can see the water you have been swimming in all this time, you can finally start to choose a better pool. That is where everything begins. Chapter 2. The Invisible Ceiling. Right now there is a ceiling over your life, and here is the strange part: you almost certainly cannot see it. It is not made of your ability. You are probably capable of far more than you are doing right now. And it is not made of your luck or your circumstances either. It is made of something much quieter than that. It is made of your idea of what is normal for someone like you. And that idea did not come from you. You caught it from the people around you without ever realizing it was happening. Let me explain how this works, because it happens to absolutely everyone. Every group of people has a normal amount of money to earn, a normal amount to want out of life, a normal way of talking about work, about money, about what is realistic and what is a silly pipe dream. Nobody sits down and decides this. Nobody writes it on a board. But it is there and everyone in the group can feel it, and the group gently pushes everyone to stay near that normal. Go too far above it, and something strange happens. You start to feel uncomfortable, like you're showing off or getting above yourself. Fall too far below it, and you feel a pull to climb back up to the level. Either way, the group quietly keeps everyone in roughly the same place. And it does all of this without anyone meaning to. It is just what groups do. This is the invisible ceiling. It is the height that everyone around you has quietly agreed is realistic. And because you soaked up their idea of realistic without noticing, their ceiling has quietly become your ceiling. You do not even try to reach above it, because above it does not feel real. It feels like a fantasy, like something that happens to other people, in other lives, not to people like you. Here is what that looks like in a real life. Imagine a woman who is genuinely brilliant at her job, better than nearly everyone she works with, and they all know it. But everyone around her earns roughly the same modest wage, and every day, without noticing, she is soaking up their world. The moans about money at lunch, the jokes about being skint until payday, the quiet assumption that next year will look pretty much the same as this year. Slowly, that becomes her whole picture of what is possible for her. Then one day a chance comes along, a real one, something that could lift her far above that modest level. And what does she do? She hesitates. She talks herself out of it. And here is the clever, sneaky part. It does not feel like fear when she does it. It feels like common sense. It feels wise even, because nobody around her has ever done anything like it. So in her mind, it does not look like an opportunity at all. It looks like a risk. It looks like getting ideas above her station. The ceiling never showed itself. It never said out loud, "You are not allowed to do this." It just quietly made a real, genuine opportunity feel silly and dangerous, and she walked away from it, feeling sensible the entire time. That is how the ceiling really works. It does not stop you. It gets you to stop yourself, and then feel clever for having done it. Now watch how clever this ceiling is at hiding, because this is the bit that really traps people. The ceiling never shows up looking like a limit. It shows up looking like wisdom. It dresses itself up as being realistic, as having your feet on the ground, as being mature and sensible and grown up. Listen to the things people say when they are quietly keeping each other small. Do not get your hopes up. Better safe than sorry. That is not for the likes of us. Every one of those lines sounds caring. It sounds sensible. But every single one of them is another brick in the ceiling, handed to you with a smile and a pat on the back. And that is exactly why the ceiling is so hard to break. You cannot fight something you cannot see, and you definitely will not fight something you have been told your whole life is just good common sense. The person being held down usually has no idea they are being held down at all. They feel like the sensible one, the realistic one, the only grown-up in a room full of dreamers. The trap is locked, and they are holding the key, thinking it is a lucky charm. So here is where it starts to change. The very next time you feel that little flicker of resistance to wanting more, that quiet voice that says, "That is not for you," stop. And ask yourself one simple question. Where did that voice actually come from? Is it really yours, or did you catch it years ago from the people around you and just mistake it for your own thoughts? 9 times out of 10 you will find it was never yours at all. It was the ceiling, talking to you in your own voice. And here is the good news to hold on to. A ceiling you can finally see is a ceiling you can finally start to lift. Chapter 3. When the people who love you hold you back. We are all taught to watch out for the people who doubt us, the ones who laugh at the dream, the ones who list all the reasons it will never work, the ones who seem to want us to stay small. And yes, those people are real, and they can sting. But here is something most people never realize. Those doubters are not the real danger. Open doubt is actually pretty easy to deal with because it shows up wearing the face of an enemy. And an enemy makes you want to prove them wrong. It fires you up. It gives you something to push against. Now, the thing that quietly holds more people back than any doubter ever could is something far harder to fight. It is love. Let me explain this one carefully, because it catches almost everybody. The people closest to you usually want one thing for you more than anything else in the world. They want you to be safe, not rich, not successful, safe. They love you, and when love gets frightened, it reaches for protection. So the very moment you reach for something risky, something that could lift your whole life but could also go wrong, the people who love you most are often the exact ones who try to talk you out of it. Not because they are cruel, the complete opposite, because they care about you so much. They cannot stand the thought of watching you get hurt, so they gently steer you back towards what is safe and familiar and known. And they do it with love in their eyes the whole time. Here is how it actually plays out. Picture a man who finally works up the courage to tell the people he loves about his big plan. He wants to leave his steady, secure job and build something of his own. He has braced himself for a fight. He fully expects them to argue with him. But the fight never comes. Something much softer comes instead. Concern. His partner gently asks if now is really the right time, with the mortgage and everything. His mum reminds him how hard he worked to get a secure job in the first place. His best mate says he just does not want to see him lose everything he has built up. Every voice is warm. Every voice is kind. Every voice genuinely loves him. And every single voice is pointing him in the exact same direction, backwards, back to staying exactly where he is, back into the box. And because it all comes wrapped up in love and concern, he cannot even argue with it properly. If he pushes back too hard, he feels like the ungrateful one, the reckless one, the idiot who would not listen. So he folds. He tells himself they are probably right. They usually are. And the dream goes quietly back in the drawer. Killed in the end, not by an enemy at all, but by the people who love him the most. This is the hardest kind of ceiling to escape, and it is because there is no villain in the story. There is nobody to be angry at. You cannot resent people for loving you. You cannot tell yourself they are just jealous or bitter, because they are not. Their worry is real, and it comes from a good and loving place, and that is exactly what makes it so powerful at keeping you small. A cage built out of love is still a cage, and it is far, far harder to walk out of than a cage built out of doubt, because walking out feels like a betrayal. Now, understanding this does not mean you push these people away. That would be a terrible mistake. They love you, and that love is precious, and you are going to want it by your side your whole life. What it means is this. You have to learn to hear their worry for what it truly is. When someone who loves you tells you to play it safe, that is not a fact about your chances of succeeding. It is a fact about their feelings. It is them telling you that they are scared for you. That is all it is. Their fear is real, but their fear is about them and their love for you. It is not solid information about whether you can actually do the thing. So here is what you do with it. You take the love and you gently set the advice to one side. You say thank you for caring, and you mean it from the heart. But you hold on to one thing. Someone can love you completely, with their whole heart, and still be wrong about what you are capable of. Because here is the hard truth to remember. The people who want to protect you from failing will, if you let them, also quietly protect you from everything that sits right next to failure. The growing, the learning, the person you would have become, the whole bigger life that only ever exists on the other side of the risk they cannot bear to watch you take. Chapter 4. Your ambition is set by the room you're in. Ambition feels like it comes from inside you, like it is just a fixed part of your personality, something you are either born with or you are not, burning away at whatever level it was set to. Some people are ambitious, some people are not, and that is just how it is. But that is not really how ambition works. Ambition is far more slippery than that, and far more affected by other people than you would ever think. The size of what you let yourself want is quietly set and then constantly adjusted by the size of what the people around you want. Let me show you both directions because you have felt both of them yourself. Spend your time around people who dream small, and your own dreams shrink down to fit in. Not because you sat down and decided to give up, but because a big dream feels ridiculous and embarrassing when nobody near you has one. Say it out loud in that kind of company, and you can actually feel it land with a thud. The room goes a little quiet. Someone changes the subject. And so you learn, without ever really deciding to want less. Or at least, to say you want less. And after a while, the wanting itself just quietly fades away, like a fire with no air to breathe. Now flip it completely around. Spend your time around people who think big, people who talk about huge plans like they are the most normal thing in the world, people who simply assume that things will grow and get better, and something inside you stretches to match them. A goal that would have felt mad and greedy last year suddenly feels sensible, even obvious, because you are surrounded by people who treat it as sensible. Your ambition did not grow because you suddenly got wiser overnight. It grew because the room changed, and you quietly changed along with it. Here is a picture of it. Imagine someone who has always secretly wanted to build something big with their life, but they have only ever sat in rooms where the biggest dream on offer was a slightly better version of what they already had. A bit more money, a slightly nicer car, a slightly bigger house, all sensible, all modest, all safe. So that became the size of their thinking, because that was the size of every single room they ever sat in. Then something happens. Maybe it is luck, maybe it is a choice they make, and they end up among a completely different kind of people. People who talk casually about building things that reach thousands of others. People who say big numbers out loud without flinching or apologizing. People who treat a huge vision not as a silly fantasy, but simply as the starting point. At first it is dizzying. It almost feels like too much to take in. But week by week it stops feeling mad. It starts to feel normal. And then one day they look at their own plans and realize they have quietly doubled, then doubled again. Not because they forced themselves to be more ambitious, not because they read a motivational quote on the internet, but because for the first time in their whole life, they were finally sitting in a room big enough to hold the dream they had been shrinking down and hiding away for years. This is why the people you choose to be around is not some soft, fluffy little topic. It is not a nice extra to think about one day. It sets the size of what you are even able to imagine, and you simply cannot build something that you will not let yourself imagine in the first place. Think about what that really means. A person surrounded by small thinking is not a small thinker deep down. They might have a huge mind in there, full of potential. It is just that their natural reach has never once been given the space to stretch out. Nobody around them ever made big feel possible, so big stayed locked away in a drawer. And here is the part that is really worth sitting with. This works in both directions. If being around big thinkers stretches your ambition, then going out and finding those big thinkers is one of the smartest things you could ever do for your own future. And here is the good news. You do not have to be born into that world. You can walk towards it. You can seek out the rooms, whether that is in person or in books or in the things you choose to listen to, where people think at the size you want to think at. And then you simply spend more of your time there until their normal slowly becomes your normal too. You are not looking for anyone to give you permission. You are not looking for a handout or a favor. You are looking to reset your own idea of what is possible by standing close to people for whom your wildest dream is just an ordinary Tuesday. Ambition is catching like a cold, so be careful who you catch it from, and make very sure you are catching it from someone who is heading where you actually want to go. Chapter 5. How Standards Quietly Disappear. The most powerful part of any environment is not the part you notice. It is the part you have completely stopped noticing. Here is what I mean by that. When you are brand new somewhere, you see everything clearly. You notice how hard people work, or how little. You notice the quality they accept as good enough. You notice what they let slide. It all stands out to you, sharp and obvious, because you have something to compare it against. You have just come from somewhere else. But stay in that place long enough and something happens. The standards start to disappear. Not because they changed, because you stopped seeing them. They stop feeling like choices that people are making and start feeling like just the way things are. And this is the dangerous bit. Once a standard becomes invisible to you, it has got you. It is quietly running you, and you do not even know it is there. This is how good people slowly slip. Not with one big decision. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides to get worse at their life. It happens through simple familiarity. The slackness that shocked you in week 1 feels normal by month 3. By month 6, you do not even see it anymore. The corner that everyone cuts, the one that made you so uncomfortable at the start, becomes a corner you cut too, without a flicker of guilt, because, well, everyone does it. You did not choose to drop your standards, you just slowly went blind to them, and quietly sank down to match the room around you. Here is that happening in a real life. Think of someone who starts a new job somewhere the work is honestly pretty poor, and nobody there seems to care one bit. On the first day, they are quietly shocked by it. They can see exactly where people are being lazy, exactly what is being allowed to slide that really should not be. And they make themselves a quiet promise. I am never going to end up like that lot. But here is the thing. Nobody stays shocked forever. That is just not how people are built. Day after day of seeing the same low standard slowly wears the shock away. What was shocking becomes normal. What was normal becomes invisible. And a year later, that same person is doing the exact same poor work they once swore they would never do. And the saddest part of all is that they cannot even see it anymore. There is nothing left for them to fight, because they have gone completely blind to it. The place never argued them into it. It never sat them down and convinced them with clever points. It just surrounded them, day after day after day, until its low standard was the only standard they could still see. The real danger of these invisible standards is that they stop feeling like standards at all. They start to feel like reality itself. And you cannot rise above something that you no longer even see as a choice. To you, it is just how the world is. It is just how things are done. This is why a person can work somewhere poor for years and years and never once think to do better. It is not that they are not capable of better. It is that the low standard has become the water they swim in. And a fish does not see water. It just swims in it all day, every day, never knowing it is there. So how do you protect yourself from this? First, guard your ability to see. This is exactly why new people are so valuable, and it is why you should listen to them instead of rolling your eyes at them. When someone new arrives and feels uncomfortable about something, do not rush in to explain it away or tell them that is just how it is here. Listen to them, because they can still see clearly what you went blind to years ago. Their fresh discomfort is like a mirror being held up. It shows you the standards you stopped noticing, but only if you are humble enough to actually look into it. And second, and this is the really powerful one, if you are going to sink to the standard around you either way, then deliberately choose to put yourself around high standards, because this whole thing works in the good direction too. Surround yourself with people whose ordinary everyday effort is better than your very best. People for whom excellent is just normal, just Tuesday. And guess what happens to you? That becomes your new invisible normal. You drift upwards instead of down. Because make no mistake about it, you are going to drift towards whatever surrounds you. That part is not optional, and it never was. The only real choice you get is what you allow to surround you in the first place. Chapter 6. The environment you never counted. When you think about your environment, you probably think about people. Your friends, your family, the people you work with, the company you keep. But your environment is much bigger than just the people in the room. It is everything that regularly goes into your mind. What you read, what you watch, what you listen to, what you scroll past 100, 200 times a day. None of that is neutral. None of it just washes over you and leaves. All of it is going in. All of it is shaping you, in exactly the same way people do, just more quietly, because it never once occurred to you to count it. So let me ask you to actually count it just for a second. Think about how much of your day you spend taking in stuff that was chosen by someone who does not care about you at all. An endless feed built by very clever people, designed not to help you or lift you up, but simply to keep you glued to it for as long as possible. A steady stream of outrage, of people showing off their best moments, of doom and gloom pouring into your head so constantly that it becomes the background hum of your whole mind. Let me put it another way. You would never let an actual person follow you around all day, whispering in your ear that the world is a disaster, that everyone else is doing better than you, that nothing you ever do will matter anyway. You would tell them to clear off, and yet millions of people carry a device in their pocket that whispers all of that, and worse, for hours every day. And then they wonder why they feel so flat, and so behind, and so beaten before the day has even properly begun. Here is the quiet power of this, shown in two ordinary lives. Picture two people. Each one has the same free hour every evening. One single hour, theirs to spend however they like. The first person spends that hour on the endless feed. Outrage, comparison, other people's carefully chosen highlight reels, and they do not notice a single thing happening to them. But drip by drip, they are taking in a little dose of everyone is doing better than me and the world is rubbish anyway. And every night they end up just a tiny bit smaller than they started. The second person spends that exact same hour on something that stretches them a little. A book, a talk, a voice that knows more than they do, something that leaves them a little bit sharper than it found them. And again, on the night itself, it does not feel like much at all. But now run it forward 1 year. Just 1 year. The first person has spent 365 hours soaking in noise. The second person has spent the exact same 365 hours being quietly built into someone better and sharper. They both had the same amount of time, down to the minute. The only difference between them was the environment they each chose to stand in, and one of those environments just happened to fit neatly inside a pocket. Now here is why this is such genuinely good news. Unlike your family, unlike the people you have to work with, this part of your environment is almost completely in your control. You cannot always choose the people in your life, but you can absolutely choose what you read, what you listen to, whose thinking you let into your head in those quiet hours. You are the boss of this bit. You are building an environment every single day in whatever you feed your mind, and most people never even realize they are doing it. So do it on purpose. Treat your attention like the precious, limited thing that it is, because that is exactly what it is, and be careful what you feed it. Now, this does not mean you can only ever read serious books and never switch off and relax. That is not the point at all, and nobody could actually live that way for long. The point is simply to notice what a thing leaves behind in you. After you have watched it, read it, or scrolled it, just ask yourself one honest question. Do I feel bigger or smaller, sharper or duller, more hopeful or more sour and flat? The stuff that keeps quietly shrinking you is not harmless just because it is easy and free and everyone else is doing it. It is part of your environment, and it is shaping who you become one forgettable hour at a time. So remember this. You are always standing somewhere, even when you are alone with a screen in your hand. There is no neutral ground. Everything going into your mind is either building you up or slowly wearing you down, even if it is only by a little. So make very sure that the place you choose to stand, in all of those hours that quietly add up over a life, is a place that builds. Chapter 7. The Pain of Outgrowing People. There is a price to changing your environment that nobody ever warns you about. And because nobody warns you, it stops a lot of people dead in their tracks, before they have even really started. So let me be the one to warn you about it now. When you start to grow, when you raise your standards, aim higher, and change the company you keep, some of the people around you will not come with you. And the gap that slowly opens up between you and them will hurt. And sometimes it will feel like you are betraying who you used to be. This is probably the hardest thing in this whole book, because it asks something of you that feels wrong deep down in your gut. Here it is. To grow is, sometimes, to outgrow. Let me explain what that actually means, because it is not nearly as cold as it first sounds. As you change, you will simply start to fit less well with certain people. It is nobody's fault. Nobody did anything wrong. Conversations that used to flow so easily start to feel a little bit awkward. You find you have less to say to some people, and some of them have less patience for the new you. Usually there is no big argument about it, no dramatic falling out, just a slow drifting apart, and a quiet sadness that comes along with it, which is real, and which you should not try to pretend away. Here is what it actually feels like. Imagine someone who decides to take their life in a completely new direction, and slowly, bit by bit, they start to become a different person than they used to be. Better habits, bigger goals, a different way of talking about things. At first, they expect everyone around them to be happy for them. Why on earth would they not be? But instead they feel a strange coolness creeping in. Old friends start teasing them, just a little too sharply, about their new ambitions. Nights out that used to be so easy now have a slight edge to them, a feeling that they are drifting apart from the group. Or worse, an unspoken sense that the one who is growing is somehow leaving the others behind, and that the others do not much like it. Nobody actually says any of this out loud, of course, but it is there in the room and it aches. And there comes a night where they have to make a quiet choice, all on their own. They can shrink themselves back down to their old size so that everyone else stays comfortable and nothing has to change. Or they can accept the ache and keep on growing anyway. And here is the hard part, the part nobody wants to hear. There is no third option where they get to keep both. That is the choice, and everybody who grows has to face it eventually. It is really important to be honest about what is happening here, because people tear themselves apart with guilt over it. When a friendship goes a bit cold as you grow, it does not always mean that somebody did something wrong. It does not mean you have become big-headed and arrogant. And it does not mean they have become bitter and jealous. Sometimes it just means that you have changed the water you swim in, and not everyone was ever going to change it along with you. That is not you being a bad person. That is just the ordinary, painful reality of growing. It has a cost, and the cost is real, and it is okay to feel it. Now hear this next part clearly, because it really matters. This does not mean you dump people the second they become a little bit inconvenient to you. That is not growth. That is just being cold and selfish and calling it leveling up. Loyalty matters. The people who have loved you and stuck by you through everything deserve your patience and your care. That is true, and it stays true. But there is a difference between a friendship that is straining because you are growing and a friendship that only works if you agree to stay small forever. And you have to be willing, at the very least, to feel the discomfort of that difference instead of running from it. Because look at what happens to most people. They feel quite correctly that growing is going to cost them some closeness, so they choose the closeness, and they call it loyalty. But a lot of the time, if they were truly honest with themselves, it was not loyalty at all, it was fear, wearing loyalty as a clever disguise. The willingness to feel that ache of outgrowing someone and to keep going anyway is one of the quiet prices of becoming who you could be. And almost nobody who has grown in a big way ever got there without paying it at least once. Chapter 8. What to do when you cannot leave. Everything I have said so far might have left you feeling a bit hopeless. Because what if your environment is not something you can just walk away from? For most people, it is not. You might have family you would never in a million years abandon, a place you cannot leave just yet. Bills, responsibilities, people who depend on you, all holding you exactly where you are. If the only answer this book had for you was, just leave and go find better people, it would be completely useless to the very people who need it most. So here is the more honest and far more useful truth. You do not always have to leave. Instead, you do two things. You water it down and you add to it. Let me explain, because this changes absolutely everything. Stop thinking of your environment as one single fixed thing that you are either fully in or fully out of. Start thinking of it instead as a mixture, a blend. It is made up of every single influence that reaches you, all mixed together in a pot. Now, you might not be able to remove the bad influences. You might be stuck with them for now. But here is the key that unlocks it. You can change the recipe. You can start adding new, good influences on purpose until the mixture as a whole starts to pull you in a better direction. A strong enough dose of the right stuff can water down a whole lot of the wrong stuff, even when you cannot get rid of the wrong stuff at all. Here is how that actually works in practice. Picture someone who is stuck for now, surrounded by people and circumstances that do not lift them up, and they cannot change any of it without abandoning people they genuinely love. For a long time, they believe they are simply trapped, that until they can somehow get out, nothing at all can possibly get better, so they wait, and they stay stuck, and a little bit resentful, for years. Then one day they stop waiting for the big, clean, dramatic escape, and they start adding instead. 1 hour a day with a different kind of voice in their ears through a pair of headphones. One conversation a week, maybe online, maybe on the phone, with someone who thinks bigger than the people around them. One small group found on purpose of people who are moving in the direction they want to move. Their old environment has not gone anywhere. The difficult people are still there. The hard circumstances are still there. But now, that old environment is no longer the only thing reaching them. It is no longer the whole story. And slowly, in the little bit of breathing space these new good influences open up, they start to change. Long, long before they were ever actually able to leave. This is a genuinely freeing idea, because it takes away the single biggest excuse that people use to stay stuck. The excuse that says, I have to escape first, and then I can start becoming a better version of myself. No, you do not. It is the wrong way round. You can start right now today from exactly where you are, standing in the very environment that shaped you, simply by adding good new things into the mix, faster than the old things can hold you down. And here is what usually ends up happening. The escape, if it ever does come, tends to come later. And it becomes possible precisely because of the person you quietly turned into while you were still, on paper, completely stuck. Now there is a catch, and you really do need to know it. It comes down to amount and to effort. One good hour thrown against a flood of the old stuff will just get drowned out and washed away. So you have to be deliberate about it. And you have to be consistent day after day. You have to add enough of the good environment often enough that it actually starts to carry some real weight in the mix. This will not happen by accident. Remember, the current recipe of your life is the exact one that made you who you are right now. Changing it takes real, repeated, stubborn effort, held steady against the constant pull of the familiar, which is always trying to drag you back to how things were. So if you cannot leave, please do not despair. And whatever you do not just sit there and wait for some perfect moment that is never going to arrive. Start blending today. Bring in the voices, the people, the ideas that pull you upward, and keep on bringing them in day after ordinary day, until the whole current of your life slowly and then very suddenly and obviously starts to change direction right underneath your feet. Chapter 9. Becoming good environment for others. Everything up to this point has been about what your environment does to you. But there is another whole side to all of this, and it is very easy to miss, and it flips the entire thing around once you finally see it. Here it is. You are not just shaped by your environment. You are part of everyone else's. Stop and really think about that for a moment. To every single person around you, you are the environment. You are one of the influences, setting their idea of what is normal. You are helping to shape their ambition, nudging it up or down. You are raising or lowering the standard of the whole room just by being in it. You have been so busy worrying about how the room affects you that you may have never once noticed how much you affect the room. Now this is a responsibility, and it is a big one. But it is also quietly one of the fastest ways to grow that has ever existed. Let me explain exactly why that is. When you decide to become a lifting influence on the people around you, when you choose to be the one who raises the standard instead of lowering it, the one who talks about what is possible instead of what is hopeless, the one who assumes people can rather than they cannot, something has to happen first. You have to actually become that person yourself. You cannot lift a room while you are busy sinking in it. So to be good environment for other people, you are quietly forced to become the very thing you want them to catch from you. Here is that idea brought to life. Imagine a person who stops waiting around to be surrounded by better people and decides instead to just become one of them, to be the good influence they had been hoping all this time to find. So they start being the person in their group who talks about things being possible, the one who quietly refuses to join in with the daily moaning and complaining, the one who holds a higher standard, not by preaching at anyone or being annoying and superior about it, but simply by living it, out in the open, where the people around them can actually see it. At first it feels like swimming against the current. It feels a bit lonely, like they are the odd one out, the only one not joining in. But then something they did not expect at all starts to happen. One or two people around them slowly begin to rise up towards the standard they have been quietly holding. The whole mood of the room begins to warm up, and in the very act of lifting other people up, they discover that they have pulled themselves higher than any environment ever managed to pull them. because now they are not soaking up a standard from the room around them. They have become the source of it. There is a deep and powerful truth hidden underneath all of this. Very often, the fastest way to become something is to be it for other people, before you even fully feel it in yourself. You act as the strong one, the calm one, the hopeful one, for someone else's sake. And in the doing of it, you slowly become it for real. When you take responsibility for the environment you create around you, something big shifts inside you. You stop being a passive lump that just gets shaped by whatever happens to be nearby, and you become an active force, changing what is around you instead. And here is the wonderful bonus that comes with it. A person who is a force is much, much harder for the room to shape because they are far too busy shaping the room. This also quietly solves a problem from earlier in the book. Earlier on, we worried together about just how hard it can be to find yourself a good environment. Well, here is the answer to that worry. If you cannot find one, then you can start one, and you can be its very first member. That better circle of people you have been quietly wishing for all this time. You can begin building it right now, today, simply by becoming the kind of person that a circle like that would naturally form around. Influence, just like ambition, is catching, so you get to make a choice. You can be the one spreading the good thing, instead of the one catching the bad thing. So do not only ask what your environment is doing to you. Start asking what you are doing to your environment. Ask yourself, honestly, who is a little bit better off for having you near them? Whose ceiling do you quietly lift? Whose standard do you raise just by being who you are in the room? Become good environment for the people around you, and you will find, almost as a happy little side effect, that you have finally built the best environment you have ever stood in. There is a deep and powerful truth hidden underneath all of this. Very often, the fastest way to become something is to be it for other people, before you even fully feel it in yourself. You act as the strong one, the calm one, the hopeful one, for someone else's sake. And in the doing of it, you slowly become it for real. When you take responsibility for the environment you create around you, something big shifts inside you. You stop being a passive lump that just gets shaped by whatever happens to be nearby. And you become an active force, changing what is around you instead. And here is the wonderful bonus that comes with it. A person who is a force is much, much harder for the room to shape, because they are far too busy shaping the room. This also quietly solves a problem from earlier in the book. Earlier on, we worried together about just how hard it can be to find yourself a good environment. Well, here is the answer to that worry. If you cannot find one, then you can start one, and you can be its very first member. That better circle of people you have been quietly wishing for all this time? You can begin building it right now, today, simply by becoming the kind of person that a circle like that would naturally form around. Influence, just like ambition, is catching, so you get to make a choice. You can be the one spreading the good thing instead of the one catching the bad thing. So do not only ask what your environment is doing to you. Start asking what you are doing to your environment. Ask yourself honestly, who is a little bit better off for having you near them? Whose ceiling do you quietly lift? Whose standard do you raise just by being who you are in the room? Become good environment for the people around you, and you will find, almost as a happy little side effect, that you have finally built the best environment you have ever stood in. Chapter 10. Choosing your average on purpose. So we come all the way back to where we started. Back to that simple and slightly uncomfortable idea. You become the average of what surrounds you. By now, that should not feel like a clever little quote anymore. It should feel like a law of nature, something quiet and constant, working away on your life every single day, whether you pay any attention to it or not. And the whole of this book really comes down to one single decision that follows on from it. If you're going to become your average anyway, whether you like it or not, then you had better start choosing that average on purpose. Because here is the thing. Most people never do. They just inherit their environment like a hand-me-down. They get shaped by whoever happened to be nearby, by whatever happened to be on the screen in front of them, by whatever standards happened to surround the places they ended up in. And then, and this is the truly sad part, they look at the result of all that, and they think, that is just who I am. They say, that is just me. That is my personality. I have always been this way. when the far truer thing to say would be, that is just what I have been standing next to for years and years. The self that they think is completely fixed and permanent is very often just an average. And the beautiful thing about an average, the thing that should give you real hope, is that you can move it. The moment you change what feeds into it, the average itself slowly begins to change. Let me show you the whole entire point of this book in one last picture. Imagine two people, standing at the very start of their lives. They are equal, exactly equal, same talent, same drive, same raw potential. Neither one of them deserves more than the other. You could not pick a winner if you tried. But one of them drifts. They just let whatever happens to be around them do all the shaping. They soak up whatever normal they happen to land in, and they never think about it, not even once, in their whole life. The other one treats their environment as the single most important thing in their entire life. They choose their influences with real care and attention. They spend their hours near people and near ideas that pull them upward. And bit by bit, slowly and completely on purpose, they raise the average that they are becoming. Now give them both 20 years and then come back and look at them again. They will not look like equals anymore. Not even close. They will look like they came from two different worlds. And it will have absolutely nothing to do with talent, because remember, they started with exactly the same. It will come down to one reason and one reason only. One of them let the water shape them, and the other one chose the water. This is the quiet power that you have been holding in your hands this whole time, whether you ever knew it was there or not. No, you cannot choose everything about your life. Nobody can, and anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. But you have far, far more say over your environment than you have ever actually been using. Look at everything that is genuinely a choice. The people you give your precious limited time to, the voices you allow into your head, the standards you choose to stand near, the rooms, the real ones and the digital ones where you spend your hours. Every single one of those is a choice, and every choice is a small vote for the person you are slowly turning into. And none of this needs some huge, dramatic, life-flipping gesture. It really, truly does not. It just needs intention, applied steadily, over time. Add one better influence. Water down one that drags you down. Raise your own standard so that you become better environment for the people around you. Spend a bit more time in the rooms that stretch you and a bit less in the ones that shrink you. None of it will feel like a big deal on the day that you do it, but all of it, added up, over months and over years, will quietly decide who you become. So here is where I will leave you. You are going to become your average. That was never in question. It was never once up for debate. The only real question, the only one that was ever truly yours to answer, is this. Will you choose it? Or will you let it choose you? Now you know that it is a choice. And knowing that, you can begin today, right now, from exactly where you are standing, to place yourself somewhere that will build you into the person you have always had it in you to be.